Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to this panel on the Lightning Scaling Challenges. My name is Aaron van Wirdum. I work for Bitcoin Magazine. And we'll start by an introduction of the panel. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves. Sergej, let's start with you.
Yeah, my name is Sergej Kotliar. I'm the CEO of Bitrefill. We'll let you buy anything you want with Lightning by selling gift cards and digital vouchers.
What is Bitrefill?
We'll let you buy whatever you want with your Lightning by selling digital gift cards and vouchers for online products.
All right, Ben.
Ben Arc, a hacker, tinkerer, build hardware projects using Lightning Network. Started LM Bits, which is a really good project, pulling in a lot of great developers. So pretty much spending most of my time nowadays just working on LM Bits.
Rafa.
I'm Rafa. I'm the CTO at IBEX. I lead our engineering team. We build solutions for merchants and enterprises to adopt Bitcoin.
Yeah, you're taking care of the payments at the conference itself, right?
Yes.
If you're paying with Bitcoin or Lightning. Are you doing on-chain as well?
Yes, we do on-chain for e-commerce, but really our experience is you have to use Lightning for brick-and-mortar payments.
Right. So if you're paying at the conference with Lightning, it's IBEX taking care of that. Gleb.
Hey. I work on Bitcoin and Lightning at the protocol level, so trying to make sure the fundamentals work properly and make it more secure, efficient, or anonymous. I want to thank Bitcoin Magazine and the Ukrainian team for doing non-trivial efforts to bring me here from Ukraine. It was a crazy trip. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're from Ukraine. Sure. Yeah, real quick, you were also involved with, there was an effort, maybe you should just explain what you were doing, yeah.
Well, second week of the invasion, I spinned up the BTC Pay server and fundraised 5 Bitcoin, which was a lot of money at the time. And we helped local projects with the humanitarian issue stuff. I can tell more later.
Well, you were bringing food, or what, you were bringing food to the front lines, or what was the project?
I mean, it was mostly needs for babies, newborns, food for older people, helping hospitals on the spot, because it was like, now it's getting better with the humanitarian, but the first couple of months was pretty rough, and we had to do these small initiatives to handle the hard cases.
Right, so you basically took a break from Bitcoin and went and do that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Luckily, it was kind of easy to fundraise with Bitcoin and spend all that locally. I cannot imagine doing this in fiat.
Right. Why? Why could you not do it with fiat?
I honestly don't even know how to accept foreign payments in Ukraine in fiat. I never had to do this. All the time, I managed to get paid in Bitcoin, and transition into fiat is super easy. Sometimes Poland car sellers accepted Bitcoin even. So it was super smooth, super fast. I never had to report it anywhere. So I mean, I'm very glad to see that our work helps in real life.
Yeah, you build Bitcoin and now it actually helps you over there. Yeah, that's very cool actually. Okay, so the panel is about Lightning. First, maybe there's someone in the room that doesn't exactly know what this is. So who here on the panel can give the best 1 minute explanation of what Lightning actually is? Who wants to take this ball and run with it?
I think it's you.
All right, yeah, so Lightning is a layer 2 protocol for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin kind of has a scaling issue. You can only make free on-chain, free, the number free, not, well, yeah, so the number free transactions per second, more or less. So if we want millions or billions of people to use Bitcoin, that's going to be a problem. So developers came up with the Lightning Network, which is a way to kind of bundle transactions. You move transactions to a separate layer, to a second layer, and whenever you want to move back, you can do that. That's like a cryptographically secured thing. So that way, not all transactions need to happen on the base layer, and we can scale at least one magnitude more. Now the question is that enough? So that's kind of the question we're going to be discussing on this panel, among other things. But let's start with what right now is the limiting factor for Lightning? What is the bottleneck right now, or what's the problem? Is there a problem, Sergej?
In my book, the problem is well, there is no. I mean, there are a lot of scaling issues, but they're not the bottleneck, as you posed the question in a very leading way. I mean, we need to get people to use it and more. You know, a lot of people use Lightning, but there's a lot more people in the world, and there are challenges with this. Some of them relate to Lightning, but a lot of them are just your old-fashioned Bitcoin challenges. You know, what are these strange numbers, and why do I have 0.0346, whatever this magical internet money is, and all of that stuff. And I think...
okay, hang on. What you're saying is the main problem that you're seeing, and you deal with customers that should use Lightning, and do they? How many people are using Lightning?
They do, you know. I mean... depends on how you slice it, right? I mean, if you compare with on-chain Bitcoin, then it's like, yeah, maybe 20% of them use Lightning. If you compare with broader crypto, it's a much smaller number. But you know, the question is like, how do we get it to really take off in a big way, right?
All right. Well, the question what you alluded to, and what I was going to make clear is, you're saying, right now, it's not really a technical problem. There's no technical bottleneck. It's an adoption bottleneck. It's an adoption problem.
I think so. I think if the issue was at the technical issues, I mean, there are technical issues. We're going to discuss them. But if the technical issues were the main blocker, then you would have a lot of people that would be like hammering on the doors and complaining, why isn't this working, right? And we have that to some extent. I think everybody who works with Lightning has some experiences of that, but it's not millions of them, right? And so there's still the fundamental marketing issue that hasn't been overcome by Bitcoin or anybody in the cryptocurrency space at all. Of like, how do we get vast majority of people to use this as money, right? So I mean, a very simple example: like, we're on a Bitcoin conference, right? People who go to Bitcoin conferences are passionate about Bitcoin. They are, if they're users, they're probably power users, right? Or they might also not be users of Bitcoin or Lightning or to make transactions.
That's a good question to ask the audience, maybe. So, for a show of hands, who here has used the Lightning Network?
In the last month, and not related to a Bitcoin conference.
In the last month, who has used Lightning in the last month? So that's like half, maybe?
Let's fucking
Does that look
go.
like
That's
half?
brilliant.
It's 30% maybe, but it's a good number, right?
Who has never used Lightning? All right, so there's a 10 maybe?
But I think an even bigger thing to remember, and I think that's like one of my biggest learnings that's been non-obvious, is that there are a lot of people in the world that use Bitcoin that don't love Bitcoin. They don't care about Bitcoin. And they're not here, right? Yeah, I mean, there's, by any measure, millions of people in the world that use Bitcoin regularly, and there's, 3,000 people in this conference, right? So most of them are not here, and most of them wouldn't come here, because why, right? I mean, we all took some kind of car to get here, but most of us don't go to car conferences. But there are car conferences, and there are different kind of car conferences, and they all disagree on what is a car really, and so on, right? But that's kind of a thing, and I think that it's important to always stress this, that depending on what your goals are, right? Is the goal to build something for people who come here? Fine. Or if the goal is to build something for the entire world, but then you need to make sure to talk to those people. And it's easy to talk to people at conferences. You just show up and you talk to people. But it's trickier to talk to the people that wouldn't, that don't particularly care. But it's, I think, the most important thing, and something that we've been a little bit lacking in the Bitcoin space.
So why do people that don't care about Bitcoin use Bitcoin or Lightning?
It does something they needed to do.
Why?
Solves a job.
What kind of users? What are the use cases?
You can get paid online for doing work and live in a country that's not the US, you know, or you can send money, you can, there's a lot of these reasons, and Bitcoin is definitely, you know, covers like a long tail of all kinds of obscure esoteric reasons. Maybe you're fundraising for Ukraine, or maybe you're some kind of a business in Ukraine that just got some Bitcoin from Gleb to provide some kind of thing, and now you have Bitcoin and need to figure out what the hell do I do with this, right? So it does spread in this way, and it spreads. You know, sure, there are parts of people who care and love, care about and love Bitcoin, but there's also a lot of people that use it as a tool, like any other tool. Right?
Okay, so then, and this will also be a question for the rest of the panel. So what's the problem then? What are the challenges that users are facing?
I think that it's generally tricky. I mean, the moving exchange rate is a challenge. I think, you know, why is the money going up and down in value? And it's a fundamental thing. It's not Lightning specific, right? But there's also a lot of, like, you know, I mean, this conference represents a subculture of Bitcoin, right? We have certain memes and things that we all say and know and so on. We're not always so good at propagating them outwards. Like, we get like in customer studies we've done is like, just as an example, like a lot of customers of Bitrefill do not know what sats are. They think it's some kind of altcoin, right? And they get confused by it. Why do you give me sats? I don't like sats. Give me Bitcoin instead. Right? And people laugh because it's silly, because everybody here knows the sats, but right? But we're on the sats stage. But there's a lot of people in the world that don't, and like I think it's important for us to figure out how to communicate with the people that don't necessarily, you know, wake up and think about Bitcoin like we do.
Okay, so Rafa, you also deal with customers a lot with IBEX. What are some of the user experience problems that you're seeing?
Well, I totally agree with what Sergej is saying. I think there. It's, in my point of view, I think it's a problem of availability. People really, like non-Bitcoiners don't really have a lot of access to Lightning, right? And so I think it's on us to you know, take it to the people and show how you can use Bitcoin. For example, I'm wearing a shirt of the Perth Heat. Perth Heat is a baseball team in Australia that are on a Bitcoin standard, and so they are bringing people into the stadium and showing them the whole Lightning experience. They can pay for the food with Lightning. There's some what we call Lightning activations where people, you know, pay a QR and it generates something. And so those types of activities, I think, are gonna, you know, bring Lightning more into the mainstream. I think, you know, what I'm seeing is. Maybe a lot of sports teams at some point are going to start promoting Bitcoin, because any fan app, you can turn it into a Lightning wallet. And so they can hand out sats through the TV. For example, using LNURL, we were doing some demos with sports teams where they would show the QR and people could pull money from the TV. And that, I think those types of experience that are enabled by Lightning can increase adoption. And IBEX, like part of our engineering team, is based in Guatemala. And one of the things that we found out from like a user experience perspective, so Guatemala, around 15 to 10% of the GDP is remittances coming in from the United States. And so one of the things that we did from our research, like UX side, we talked to people who cash out remittances locally. So these are not Bitcoin people. These are people who have some family member in the United States that sends remittances, and these people go and cash it out at different cash out points. And one of the things that we realized when we were talking to them about Bitcoin is, first we showed them a wallet, and they were like, "What? I don't have to create an account?" Like, it was like a shock for these people that you didn't have to open an account, like put in your email and put in a password. And so we were like, okay, what if we put an email and a password? And I know that it's against sort of the Bitcoin ethos, but this makes people, this kind of target user, it makes them trust. It's a thing about trust, and so they trust a wallet more because you can create it, because they're coming from banking, from like traditional banking apps and that world, and so we have to sort of bridge the gap in terms of the user experience, like how that maps out into the Bitcoin world, and that's sort of the challenges that we're seeing from a user experience perspective. The other like big issue is merchants. How can we get merchants to accept Bitcoin? And that, I think, is like, that's our day-to-day challenge, talking to merchants, talking to them about accepting Bitcoin payments. And for example, we have several customers in El Salvador, and one of the things that happened is like they got on board to this specific merchant got on board to Ibex Pay. They didn't receive a lot of Bitcoin payments, and then we just made a little sticker, a little thing that like with a credit card, they have this like tripod thing, the piece of cardboard that they put in the entrance, and it says that credit card, Visa accepted. We made one that says Bitcoin accepted, and that immediately increased the Bitcoin payments. So I think credit card adoption didn't happen from one day to the other. Credit card companies invested a lot of time and effort into educating merchants and showing them how to accept payments. I think we in the sort of Bitcoin payments industry need to do the same effort to educate merchants and help them advertise that they accept Bitcoin payments.
Yeah, Ben, Gleb, do you have any thoughts on user experience problems or challenges there?
Yeah, I would say that Lightning predominantly is used for medium of exchange as opposed to store of value. So it has a different set of problems, one being stability, which you mentioned. So if you're using it for medium of exchange, say in El Salvador, for example, you don't want the price to be too volatile because then it's just not good money. And we need to provide we're here to provide the best money experience we can provide with the tool set we've got. So there's clearly a lot of great work being done on creating stability on Bitcoin on Lightning by Galloy and Standard Sats, another great project, and some of the Taro stuff as well with LND. Like clearly, we see there's a need for that. When you if you go to someone like El Salvador and you have 70% of the population's unbanked, and then suddenly they get access to this incredible digital payments technology, and it bootstraps the entire country to be able to use and accept digital payments, for the citizens to be able to use and accept digital payments. The clear issue is the fact that it's so volatile. Bitcoin is just volatile. And then will people use Bitcoin as money if it's volatile as a medium of exchange off-chain on Lightning? If it's volatile, I don't think they will. And I think that a lot of us in this room will probably think that once Bitcoin gets to a certain mass and it's so hard to move the price, then it will become stable. But I'm not sure how we will get there without, it's almost like a chicken chasing, like, I know, a chicken and an egg thing, where you need price stability, but you need the liquidity to have price stability, but you're not going to get the liquidity to have price stability until people are using it as a medium of exchange. So I think there's some of the stable solutions which are out there to try and tackle this problem. I think that's like, not low-hanging fruit, but I think that's where a lot of us should focus our efforts and just appreciate that most people are using Lightning for legitimate uses. They want to use it as a medium of exchange. It's not store of value because it's a hot wallet. You don't want to store your Bitcoin in there. Store your Bitcoin on a hardware wallet on-chain if you have a significant amount. And then it's like, well, if our users who are using Lightning don't have a significant amount of Bitcoin, then how do they engage in the network? It's currently quite complex to run a node, and also costs a certain amount of transaction fees, and you have to, put a certain amount of liquidity into your node in order to be able to get like decent network exposure, so you can actually have payments processed properly. So it's complex and hard to engage with. The stability there's no stability. So then what we're offering is medium of exchange. All those problems are achieved, we will overcome them. This is what we do in Bitcoin. Like we see a new set of problems of our users, and then we're like, well, how do we fix that problem? And then we address those problems and we work at them. So, yeah, complexity and stability, I would say, are the two main issues for engaging with the Lightning Network, which is used as a medium of exchange. I'm not saying that's a problem in Bitcoin generally, because I think Bitcoin is a store of value. Yeah, whatever, put a couple of $1,000 on chain and it's not going to cost you anything, and you can get a hardware wallet, whatever. But then it's different uses. It's different uses for different users. So, like, you know, the European who's storing 10 grand on a Bitcoin hardware wallet because they think it's going to up in value and they'll be able to sell it for more in the future, they have a different set of features they need access to than someone in El Salvador who's accepting payments and then needs to pay their bills at the end of the month. So it's just, yeah, they're the issues we need to tackle on Lightning specifically.
Are there any ballpark estimates of how many Lightning users there are today? And is the answer no? Some ballpark?
It's getting harder because there's a lot of people going dark on the node maps, which is good because people are routing through Tor.
Is there some?
Is a user of a centralized service? Is that a user?
I don't know. Is that a user? Yeah.
I think so, but I mean, one can argue about that. But I mean, you know, I would, if I guess, probably north of 100,000.
So is there a ballpark estimate of how far the Lightning Network in its current design could scale? Like how many people could potentially use Lightning as it is?
I mean, again, there's no shortage. You know, the whole idea of like we can't open channels for the 8 billion people in the world. Like, yeah, that's true, but like you know, there is no shortage of block space, right? We can open channels for it. Today, we have more channels than we have people who want to get a channel, right? So scaling issues are champagne issues, right? You need to celebrate them with a bottle of champagne because most projects never get to scaling issues. And when you got there, then it's you know, it's a good thing. And then you have the champagne, and then you deal with figuring the shit out. And Bitcoin had scaling issues in the past, and it's kind of, and I mean, that's how Lightning came about as well. And so the scaling thing is kind of like connected to Lightning, and it's talk about scaling problems and so on. But like right now, it's not limited by the scaling thing. I hope and work as hard as I can every day to get to a point where it is, so that we can fight over which scaling solution is better than the other. Right?
I work on the opposite side, I guess, on the technology side, try to make it scale up to the users. And the question is how to prioritize certain challenges over other challenges. And I have this little new narrative I want to suggest. Obviously, it's technology, how it scales, and then the social scalability. There's these two parts. And I think it goes in rounds. I think now we're at the point where the technology is kind of good enough and the users have to catch up for a bit. I think at this round we got to focus on the, for example, subscription services for VPN or for newsletters. That's how we make this round. We get a bunch of newsletters accept Bitcoin to just supply money flowing from the maximalists towards them. Then they recognize that it's actually cheaper than accessing a whatever, Visa, MasterCard, cheaper or more efficient. Then they start slowly onboarding new users who is not Maxi. At that point, we hit new challenges in the technical space. And we have to kind of recognize these rounds and address particular problems. So far, I guess, we can make a conclusion that it's not easy enough to integrate for those subscription services to use Lightning. So maybe one of the challenges I try to address is the integration usability. How much does it cost to accept Lightning? So that's how I think about it.
So yeah, so that's sort of on the adoption side. So let's move a bit more to the technical side. Gleb, what would you foresee is the next technical bottleneck?
I think developer experience is a big one. I think helping developers to integrate Lightning into the products is a good pain point to address today. I mean, I look at different high-level stuff, how routing is, how it is easy to route a payment through the network, and how often does it fail. How
often does it fail?
For bigger payments, it's not. It might be problematic. I never had any issue below $100, but I don't transact on Lightning more than $100 that often to. But
so in that case, it's liquidity that's the problem, right? Liquidity would be the problem why payments fail, or are there other issues?
I don't even think we have a good answer to that. Well, at least it's not recognizable. That's another point of developer experience. We don't understand all the problems yet. It's all we need to spend a bit more research on how these libraries behave. I mean, one idea I had is I should go to the active Lightning companies today and try to help, or we together understand the internals, what's going on under the hood and their actual experience, to summarize them and to share this across different actors in the ecosystem to improve their integration offers.
Right, so what's happening is you can see that payments are failing, but as developer, from sort of a bird's eye perspective, you don't know why.
Yeah.
So the only way to find out is to actually ask the people that are experiencing the failures, right? Other scaling challenges, bottlenecks. Sergej, I think you mentioned onboarding.
Well, I mean, so Lightning is in this state where it can go in two different directions, right? Either we go in the directions of hold your own keys, right? Have your own channels, not your keys, not your coins. Or it goes into the more centralized direction where, it's the blue wallet of Satoshi Chivo.
Well, that's the direction it seems to be
and
going
that's
in,
a separate
right?
question. But if we want to go in the direction where people hold the keys to their Lightning channels, then that requires quite a lot of capital, right? That needs to be deployed, and it's not easy to do that. I often hear people that come from the financial industry and talk about inflation and so on, and they're just like, oh, I provide liquidity, yeah, totally. And they're like, yeah, okay, look, here we have a Lightning node, we have a couple thousand people who want channels from us. Can you loan us some Bitcoin? Oh, no, we need collateral. I'm like, okay, yeah, right. So there's issues like that, and then there's the fundamental issue, which is who's going to open these channels to all these people, because whoever does is going to run a hot wallet with a lot of Bitcoin on it, right? Which also introduces a significant technical risk. What if it breaks? What if it gets hacked? What if rogue all of the usual things, right? That makes it non-trivial and unfortunately prevents. I mean, it's a decentralizing factor, right? It prevents these hubs from becoming very big, and it actually speaks for something in the more Fediminty type, where there's many smaller Lightning service providers that are interconnected with each other. But yeah, capital constraints is currently definitely a thing. I know a lot of wallets are struggling to find Lightning service provider liquidity service.
Ben, did you want to weigh in on technical bottlenecks?
The channel liquidity issue.
Sorry, what?
The channel liquidity issue is an issue, and then your channel's becoming off balance. And I'm amazed at some of the work people do doing real scientific research into how to best manage channels, and often it's just voluntary enthusiasts. And they've got these Telegram groups where they're all setting up channels with each other and whatever else. And there's some great autopilot solutions. So with our LM-Bits demo server, our channels kept going squiff, and we're relatively technically competent. But then payments would fail, and users would have a crappy user experience. And then we installed CLBOSS on C Lightning, and that just throws some Bitcoin and an on-chain address, and it just goes, and it creates a whole bunch of channels for you. It's great and it works, but you need a certain amount of liquidity to do that. But I think so. Simple Bitcoin wallet, which is a sort of pseudo non-custodial Lightning wallet solution, which is a great wallet, by the way. The way in which they got around that solution was through hosted channels. So you pretend that there's no on-chain transaction fee associated with setting up a channel. And then liquidity providers, people who have big fat channels, they could potentially offer some of that channel liquidity to a user, and they can make use of it, and then they can get yield through a transaction fee on offering that channel liquidity. And what it gives you is another custodial solution, but what it gives you is it gives you a custodial solution where you have some proof if they try and rip you off. So if I have a hosted channel with LMBig, and then LMBig rips me off, then I can take that public and say LMBig ripped me off. Whereas where currently, if you're using Wallet Satoshi or something, they could just change the numbers on your app, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. But I think these are all band-aids. I mean, we work on LMBits.
Wait, just to make sure that I understand this. So this would mean that the custodian can steal your money, it's just you'd know that they're doing it. But your money would still be gone.
If they rip you off, you have a proof you could take. It's like a social proof. So it's better than just custodial, trust your coins into, Wallet Satoshi's done some great work in promoting the technology. But these are all, like we work on LMBits, which is a custodial solution, because we saw early on that, like a lot of people were using OpenNode, LMPay, and Wallet Satoshi, and we're like, well, we want people to be able to run these things themselves. If you're your own bank, then yeah, you could offer banking solutions. But ultimately, you want people to be able to run this stuff themselves. And I think how you get there is, things like channel factories and not having that on-chain fee to be able to set up a channel means that there'll just be more liquidity, and the liquidity in the network will just get better distributed, which then means more people can access the network as well.
Okay, hang on. What is a channel factory?
So it would just be that you can, a way in which, so currently if you have to have a couple of on-chain transactions to be able to set up and close a channel, now with this you could just set up multiple channels. I think it's using the Taproot stuff. I don't know too much about it.
What's needed for this to go live? Is anyone working on it?
I think it's all the Taproot stuff which came in. I'm not like too au fait on it, but I do know that this is the thing with Bitcoin.
Gleb knows the answer.
We're always with Bitcoin. We're always like, this is the shittest Bitcoin experience you're ever going to have. And tomorrow there's a whole bunch of people making this Bitcoin experience a little bit better. So these issues people have with engaging with the Lightning Network, they're temporary issues, and 6 months, a year, they'll be solved. Sorry, Dan.
Gleb, could we have channel factories tomorrow?
Well, the issue is, I guess, developer shortage. It is possible to build it today. I think there is...
Does it require a protocol upgrade on Bitcoin main chain or no?
I don't remember. Either not or CHash any private, which is almost fine. I think the issue was that when somebody tries to leave the factory, then it gets not that optimal, and that's why developers choose to focus on different projects to optimize Lightning. But I guess if somebody wants to join and try building that, you're welcome, and you'll probably get funded for that. So it would be really cool. It's a nice optimization. It might bring some new structure, new ways we communicate in Lightning. Like there will be a new business to operate it. Factory probably or something, or coordinated at least. So it is a pretty cool project. Ask me more if you're interested.
Do you think that like a lot of this stuff would be, because a lot of people who are running routing nodes, they were thinking that they would get all this yield on fees, and I always thought that was nonsense, because the amount of money you would need to stake in order to get, it's always a race to the bottom on fees, particularly with like splitting payments and things. Do you think that there will be a place for a node operator with a certain amount of liquidity where they can get yield from a bunch, like operating maybe a channel factory, liquidity pools and blah, blah, blah. Like there'll be a host of channels, like there'll be a whole bunch of services they can offer, like an LMBig could offer a whole bunch of things and then get a yield from all these different services they're offering.
I think that would be really cool, actually. That would be a cool property where we have somebody responsible for adoption. Not in a moral way, but in the business way. When somebody earns something, that's the best way to scale the operation and scale the adoption. So that would be pretty cool. I probably hope it will be something a bit more creative and smarter than just let people use the factory. So there, I hope we come up with some additional features. But yeah, that's a great direction.
So I have some more questions here, but I think this might also be, like, we kind of got a cozy small room here. Maybe there's like does anyone in the audience have a burning question they want to ask for any of our panelists? Yeah, you just, in the middle there, you'll just have to shout it out and we'll repeat the question. Well, we've kind of gone over channel factories, I think, but maybe I think in short, the idea is that right now you're opening, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I remember. Right now you're opening a channel with 2 people, and so you have to, you can move liquidity back and forth, you can pay back and forth, and with a channel factory you can basically open kind of like a channel with 10 people and move liquidity between the 10 and then also in and out of the channel. Is that sort of the very short summary? So you need less on-chain transactions because now there's 10 people sort of on the same UTXO rather than 2. Is that
Yeah, that's fine.
summarizes it? Yeah, all right. Yeah, you're in the front. How do you set up a Lightning node? Ben,
Did I say it was easy?
start 9, is that what you mentioned?
I would ask start 9, I guess. I mean, it's not easy.
What's the best?
It's
Is there a website or like, if someone wants to run a Lightning node, where do you start?
I mean, so I'm a big fan of extrapolating some stuff out. So with our LMBits demo server, we use a plugin on C Lightning called Trusted Coin, which goes and gets block data from a bunch of sources. And then the thing which does the host a channel thing in Simple Bitcoin Wallet, what was it called? Anyway, FiatJaff forked it and made Cliche Wallet. And that's really nice. You can do hosted channels in that. So what you can have is, it depends what you want. Like, if you want to be like completely self-sovereign, have your own node at home and all that stuff, then, run a Raspberry Blitz and learn to manage channels. We're not on C Lightning, use CL Boss, throw some Bitcoin at it and let it do its thing. CL Boss is very good as an autopilot solution. And again, so everything will keep getting better. These autopilot solutions are just going to keep getting better and better and better because there's a lot of energy being poured into those solutions right now. But I think my personal favorite node solution, and I would use it for enterprise, and I would use it for like decent sums of money as well, would be like a light node on some server, which would be a Cliche wallet using hosted channels, and then not having like a full Bitcoin blockchain because I don't want that on my server because it's going to cost me loads. And it's secure enough because I'm getting block data from like 10 different sources. But that's not like the self-sovereign, tinfoil hat Bitcoiner. If you're that guy, then yeah, a Raspberry Blitz is a good project. Particularly because they got their nice new UI now, so you can access, and it's completely free and open source. But yeah, if it's me making a business and or a node which I'm going to host on some VPS, it's probably not quite there yet. But I think Cliche Wallet is going to be really good soon.
I want to ask something about, so this isn't directly scaling related, but so what you're doing as a Lightning node is essentially you're, what's the English term? You're moving money, right? You're helping transmit money from A to B. So you're a middleman in that sense. Is this, as Lightning becomes more popular, is this at risk of becoming a KYC activity? Is that a risk for Lightning in your view? Rafa, you probably have to deal a lot with KYC type of rules.
Depending on the jurisdiction, I think right now the challenge more is for developers to learn how to program on Lightning and build on top of Lightning. The KYC issue may come up in the future. I think from a regulation perspective, at least I see it in the U.S., it's just like analogous to like the marijuana legislation where it was like a ground-up movement more than top-down. The federal government always is the last one to change. I think there has to be some movement further down. But I wanted to talk about the developer experience because I think it's an important issue. Like for us, at least in Latin America and in Latin American markets, there's this tendency right now to build for large financial services firms to build super apps. A super app that has a delivery service, messaging, financial services, and can include Bitcoin. And so we've met with some of these like big, Latin American conglomerates, and we sit down with developers and we have to teach them, okay, how does Lightning work? Like all the basics. We recently had a meeting with like 20 developers from a single company to explain Lightning to them. How does it work? How can you build on top of Lightning? And I think what Ben has done with LM-Bits. LM-Bits is a beautiful learning tool. Like to answer your question, if you can, LM-Bits is like I feel it's like the Arduino of Lightning apps, because you can pretty much play with anything new in the protocol that is incorporated, like even on top, like LNURL, all those stuff, or new types of applications. I think LM-Bits is a beautiful project. We got our start with LM-Bits. We were like trying to figure out what is this Lightning thing, and LM-Bits was our first experience, and there we were able to interact with Lightning and figure out, oh, this is how this works. But not just reading about it or like having to go through the code, but actually being able to play around. So I think LM-Bits is a great learning tool. You've done a great job with that, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, man. You were using it when it was really buggy as well. And we were like, oh my god! But then you put in a bunch of fixes. It was great. Thanks for you.
Anyone else want to, Sergej, you deal a lot with KYC. What's your expectations there?
Your question is there a risk? Yes. How likely is it, and what can we do about it? In a lot of ways, I think it's similar to running a Bitcoin node or running a Bitcoin miner, for example. Right? You can make a decent argument that a Bitcoin miner is a money transmitter, for example. I think that the way to go around it is like having many people all over the world do it in a small scale and show that it's not the end of the world, and it's not a lot of bad things that are happening here. It's like the internet; it's chaotic, but it's mostly good. Right. And so we'll see. I think it's also very important, especially as we get big companies showing up in the space that we make sure that they're on board with this stuff, right? So that we don't accidentally import a lot of regulatory issues and end up with two Lightning networks, one regulated, one not, right? That would be a very undesirable outcome. And so I think it's also like a little bit on the community to sort of be very firm in terms of like, here's our analysis, here's what we think is right. Lightning is not a money transmitter. This is our view. The world is fine with this view. You don't need to do anything about this.
I like the analogy with miners. I think, with miners, they can track you by the electricity spikes or something, on the central system. But here, there is no such thing. We probably need, and even for minors, nobody goes after them and telling them to pay taxes or saying they're criminals or something, at least in reasonable jurisdictions. We probably want a good reputation system, anonymous reputation for this kind of Lightning nodes, because there is still some kind of not trust but reliability involved. So you don't want to open channels with random people for big amounts at least. So what's the missing part is a good anonymous reputation system, and then we're good. I think we're in a good position to fight this bullshit.
Okay, so if we pivot back to scaling a bit, one of the projects that has been getting some attention lately is Fediment. So Fediment, for those that don't know, it's a shared custody solution that uses Xiaomi and Cash. So basically, you have a setup, you have a multi-sig setup where the coins are held. Bitcoin Beach uses this, for example, in El Salvador. There's several people that control the money, and then the rest of the wallet users, they trust that whoever's holding the wallet won't collude. And then the payments actually happen with a Xiaomi Cash system, so that's sort of like anonymous tokens. And that, in turn, can be connected to the Lightning Network. Have you guys thought about this? Is this the next step for Bitcoin?
One of our main contributors in Alan Bits, Cali, he's been working on Cashew, which is another implementation of Chormy Needs. Chormy, for those who don't know, David Chorm, who pretty much spawned the cypherpunks. He then went on to build Bitcoin, came up with this idea of an e-cash, which is a bearer asset which you could transmit to each other, and it could be done in a way, privacy-centric way, where there's a centralized mint, which doesn't know how much money people have. They use these blind signatures. It's complicated crypto stuff, very cool. Been around since the mid-'80s, I think. And it's always been like something we should build into Bitcoin at some point. It's still custodial, and it has a number of issues. We have a new extension which we're putting into Alan Bits where you can become a mint, you can mint some tokens, and then they're bearer. But it's still custodial, like you could be lying, ultimately. So then FediMint just come across with this idea, they have this idea of federating that, so the trust, instead of being with one party, is then with a number of parties in a federation. But there's still risks of civil attacks and so on, but there's some great people working on the project, has a lot of traction. And I think it will be yet another way in which people engage with Bitcoin. It has a number of, some of the features if we're running LM Bits and everyone's using a Chormy and eCash in LM Bits, as a custodian, I have plausible deniability because I'm like, well, I don't know how much money people have, and I don't know what they're using it for. But then, living in the real material world of regulations and governments, they might be like, well, we want you to know what people are using the money for, and then it could be a case of that then comes under more regulatory scrutiny. But I really do think what you said before about social scalability is a very, very important point. It's that Bitcoin in itself is a social phenomenon, and that where we'll see the most amount of traction is if you have all these countries which have central banks, have complicated banking infrastructure, they'll look into building their own centralized digital, CBDC stuff. But then countries which don't have that infrastructure, of course, they're going to look at this free and open source stack of software over here, which has all these this amazing feature set, which a bunch of very clever people have been working on and building some cool solutions for. So I think as a social phenomenon, it will be countries which need a digital money and something which isn't, controlled by a few people and isn't centralized. And maybe they don't have complex banking infrastructure. Maybe it's a way for them to wiggle away from, the yoke of some imperialist force. Like in Wales, for example, we might have the Welsh pound, and we can wiggle out of the English imperialism and the Bank of England. But just throwing it out there, if someone wants to go and build that, I'll support it heavily. But no, as a social, so this social scalability, this is another cypherpunk, Nick Szabo, had this concept of social scalability, which is very important. And that's you can leverage all this stuff and replace a lot of archaic infrastructure, and you need less resources to replace those things. And then I think that's when we're using Bitcoin smart, when we're like replacing all this legacy. And this is what Satoshi had a great quote on this when it came to someone posted on Bitcoin Talk that Bitcoin was thermodynamically perverse, and he said that it's once it replaces all the legacy infrastructure, which it probably will replace, then it will definitely, even if mined with carbon, it will be net positive. And I agree with that. Like, I think we're using it in a dumb way, just passing it around with each other. eCash, Lightning Network, all that stuff is part of that social scalability, which, as a social phenomenon, will take hold in countries which need it, which don't have complicated banking infrastructure, don't have central banks, but they want to be their own currency producers. And they want to try and do it in a way which is on a stable and secure stack, which is Bitcoin. But yeah, I think eCash then will really play a part because a country could have a vault, essentially, which you chuck Bitcoin in. It spits out, a Welsh pound. And then the vault is, I know that the vault does an amount of hedging or with a service like the stuff which I talked about before, the standard sats and the auto hedging with Collider. Like it can auto hedge, so it keeps some stability. It's verifiable money which is in that vault, and then I get my Welsh pound, and maybe like some sort of MakerDAO thing too, where I can like if it goes off peg, I can sell back for a profit or buy back cheap. I don't know. But whatever. So I think the idea of a mint and then these bare asset eCash things out there in the world, which people are engaging with and using, I think is very powerful. I'm glad that finally we have. In fact, I'm ranting on.
I got to cut you off at some point.
Let me just tell you one anecdote. So my friend Martin Wismer, who's here with General Bytes, the ATM company, he shared an office with David Chaum in the mid-90s, and Chaum had like hooked up all the vending machines and everything to accept eCash, DigiCash, which they were using at the time, and he said it worked perfectly. And he's a long-term Bitcoiner, and he's like, yeah, bring it on. This is going to be cool.
Okay, so before I turn it back to the audience for, well, depending on how much time we have, are there any scaling challenges or solutions, potential solutions, works in progress that we haven't mentioned on this panel so far that someone wants to mention? Do we skip anything? Sergej says no. No, yes. No. Back to the audience. All right. Are there any more audience questions? Let's go here in the front corner. You can just scream it out.
Yeah. Could I maybe borrow the mic?
Okay, yeah. He wants to borrow your mic.
Thanks. Hi. I was just speaking at the main stage about our Lightning research, and you guys were literally just talking like, why do Lightning payments fail? I'm from River. We run two of the largest nodes by capacity on the network, and we just published a lot of research about this, showing why payments fail. So maybe that's could be helpful for you. This is essentially why we did it, to help the network to continue to develop.
Okay,
so
great.
Maybe to share some quick stats if you're interested.
Sure.
About 1% of payments fail when we route them. And out of those, the two biggest reasons are because the node times out when trying to find a route. And this is often related to Tor, from my understanding. And the second biggest reason is there's no route available at all to be found. So those two together make up about 1.3% in total. So I just thought I'd throw it out there.
But what about the rest then?
And there's a very small percentage that's like if a node is offline or if the previous node sent bad instructions or anything like that. But together it makes up about 1.3%, and the 98.7% are successfully routed.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. I get it. All right.
But this is for River's nodes that you guys manage professionally, right? So it might look a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure.
To do it with an umbrella.
But yeah, that's some data at scale which could potentially help a little bit. Just wanted to put it out there for
you. Do you think that's because some people who are running nodes don't really know how to run them? So then that's where the issue lies. Like as nodes get easier to run, and as autopilot stuff gets better, and
could be, yeah, potentially. Yeah, we need way more data, I think, from the entire network to start seeing a lot of things about this. Yeah.
All right, well, thanks for that. One more question, I think, there? Yeah.
First, thank you guys for this nice talk. It's very special to see that. And you mentioned about anonymous reputation. Do we have a technology that allows this? I believe it's really important, but without using KYC, how is that possible? Can you use action from a wallet to reputation? How can I really hope in the coming months and years this is going to really take awareness.
Gleb, first, if you understand the question, which I didn't, to be honest, then please repeat it. Okay.
He just asked whether we have a technology for anonymous reputation and what's the bottleneck, what prevents us from having it. I've been thinking a lot about it in the context of spam in the Lightning Network, because that's currently kind of a problem. We just published research a month ago saying that it's quite cheap to disrupt the operation of the network, at least without trust. If you trust your peers and they trust their peers, so you're chill, you just call them and say, oh, something's wrong. But if you're using Lightning Network anonymously, the way we want it to be used, then somebody can disable your node quite, well, I wouldn't say easily, but yeah, it is not that hard. So after looking at this problem, we were thinking how to solve it, and there is basically two directions in design space. One is a bit more sophisticated fee structure, when you pay some fee in advance, then you pay some fee over time. That way, spamming at least costs a lot of money, and then nobody will, well, presumably that solves the problem partially. The second solution space is reputation, so that you allow payments somebody connects to you, you first say, okay, you can transfer $100 in Bitcoin over an hour, so that they can lock at most $100 of your liquidity. Then if they're good, if they're paying fees, you increase that limit. But to check that, we need a reputation system again. We need an identity to attach to this payment, ideally anonymously. And this problem comes over and over again. Why Signal asks us to use a phone number when we can use a reputation system? I think there is a lot of projects that would benefit from such system, and the best I came up with is looking at how much Bitcoin you own. Say, I will talk to you if you have $10,000 worth of Bitcoin. Zero knowledge proofs, the technology allows to prove that you have one Bitcoin without revealing which one, which is pretty cool.
But then you're going to be in business with North Korea.
I don't think anybody built a good production-ready implementation of that yet. It's either kind of slow or limited. This is a really good research project for now. Try to build that. Try to use zero-knowledge primitives to build a library for proving that you're this person which owns some Bitcoin, and please, and base a reputation on that.
All right, we're out of time. One last question for Gleb. Are you still accepting donations for your project in Ukraine? And if so, how do people find it?
I shut down the server because it was not much traffic over the last couple of months. But if you go to my Twitter and see replies I made, one of the last 5 messages is I was suggesting somebody else to. It's pretty cool. So there is this guy, LNURL, and he runs a server to exchange Lightning into Ukrainian credit card money immediately, no KYC, as little as $20 or something. So I suggested some volunteer fund, and you can use this server to send your Lightning directly to their credit card and help a good initiative locally. Just ask me if you can't find it, but it should be in one of my last replies.
And your Twitter handle is?
My Twitter handle is FFSTLS, or you can just look up my name.
Okay.
Can I just add to continue? A lot of people are like, what can I do with Lightning? Should I run a node? Should I do whatever? I just want to do something, but I'm not looking to buy anything. Put some Bitcoin in a Lightning wallet, find a cause that you believe in, send them some money, whatever you think is appropriate. Try out the experience, contribute to good, and help Bitcoin be seen as a force of good as well.
All right, I agree. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the panelists. And enjoy the rest of the conference.